Welcome, everybody, to the Full Press Coverage Commanders podcast. My name is George Carmi. Let's get it on. What's up, everybody? Hopefully, you guys are having a great afternoon. My name is George Carmi, host of the Full Press Commanders podcast. I'm here with Mark Tyler from Hogs Haven. How you doing today, bud?
Good, George. What's going on, man? Thank you for having me.
Of course, man. It's always a pleasure to talk to Mark. I'm always talking to him on Twitter and things like that. So I actually wanted to meet him in person. So, Mark, let's talk about it, man. You're the head content creator at Hogs Haven. How'd you get into that, man? How'd you start get into writing, and how'd that all come about for you?
God, it was a long time ago, George. I think we're going back to like 2012, 2010,
Okay.
maybe. I just kind of jumped on there, started conversing with a lot of fellow Redskins people. And it just took off from there, gave a little bit of insight, did a little bit of film breakdown, and it kind of grew. And then they put me on as a writer, and God, I can't believe it's been this long, to tell you the truth.
It's crazy. I feel like 2012 was like, RG3, the whole era.
Yeah.
Everyone started to kind of get into like just kind of like being on Twitter, social media, and things like that. So it took off. It's pretty cool, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's fun.
Do you like favor writing more? Are you more of like a writer? Are you more of like a podcaster? Like what's your favorite part about the gig? What are you thinking?
So I've never done a podcast myself. I've been on a lot of podcasts, but I've always thought about it. I think it's so interesting and so intriguing with that everyone is doing podcasts now, and you can kind of like go out there, listen to your favorite folks, just be able to interact with people through our technology.
Mm-hmm.
As for writing, I mean, it kind of just came naturally to me when I was in college. I did a lot of writing courses. I took a lot of English classes, and just something I enjoyed. But I think overall, it's just more talking about football and just a way to get the message across.
That's cool, man. That's awesome. Yeah, definitely feel you. I was actually a broadcast journalist major at Maryland. I loved it, man. It's talk about sports. It's just a fun thing to do. So definitely into it. So going back to that, you talked about like film study, and I think you might be coaching your son or something like that, from what I understand. Are you like, what's your whole love of football? Where did that come from?
So I started off playing football when I was, I think, 9 years old. I think I started playing like Pop Warner Pee Wee football, and then it kind of just went from there. Played in college, coached after I got done college.
Cool.
Did a little bit of recruiting work with one of the big services out there
Oh, wow.
in Northeast PA for a little while. Then I got into, when we moved up to Connecticut, I coached for quite a while. I coached high school. I was a head coach in both high school football and track. Then
Awesome,
once
man.
my son got a little bit older, it was killing me because I would be going to practices. I'd be coming late. I wasn't seeing him play.
Yeah.
We'd have to break down film on game days. So I just wanted to be a part of his, maturation process as he was going through sports. So
Yeah.
I kind of stopped doing the high school stuff and stopped doing the strength conditioning and got into more coaching with him when he was in Pop Warner. Now he's a freshman in high school. So, he's on his own. That's when I back off.
He's a beast too, right? He's pretty big. I see him like squatting and eating the protein bars and all that. How big is he right now?
Yeah, he's gotten crazy into all the nutrition stuff.
That's awesome.
Right now he's running about 5'10", like 175. So, like I say, still a freshman, so he's got some growing room. But yeah, he's squatting over 4. He's deadlifting like 4 and some change. So
Cool.
he's turned into a little beast. We'll see.
That's
Keep my
awesome, man.
fingers crossed.
What
Yeah.
position did he play? What position does he play? And what position did you play back in the day?
So back in the day, I was a tight end and linebacker.
Nice.
Played linebacker in college because I preferred defense. He was a running back. He's more athletic than I am. He's super fast. He's lightning quick. But he transitioned to quarterback a little bit last year. But
Okay.
he played as a freshman on varsity as a linebacker. So he got some PT. I was kind of surprised, but
Nice.
he was a little undersized. So now he's trying to bulk up. He wants to go into the season being around 185. So we'll see.
Okay. Cool, man. That's awesome, man. Cool. That's awesome. So yeah, let's start talking about the Commanders. So basically, we all have this love for the team. We just had the draft kind of wrap up a couple of weeks ago. OTAs are starting next week. Mark, what are your general impressions of the team so far? How do you feel about the team in year 3? Are you Team Ron Rivera? Are you confident in him right now? Are you optimistic about the season? How are you feeling about it?
Yeah, I mean, I was always a big Ron fan when he first came here. I think a lot of people called me a homer because of that. Listen, I had a lot of faith in him. Just I liked Gruden too. To tell you the truth,
Yeah.
I thought he was a great offensive mind. Just wasn't a great head coach. But
Mm-hmm.
I thought Ron was a great leader of people. So I think he can do a great job in that area. The confidence has waned a little bit over the last year. I just saw us going into the offseason, thought we could improve our football team in various different areas, and obviously watched us kind of sit there after the Carson Wentz move and not do a lot. So I was a little bit down and dejected, and probably shouldn't let those emotions come out on social media as much as I did in the offseason. But, we're emotional people. That's what we do. You're the same way as
100%.
I am. Dude, we care. So
we do. Exactly right.
And, I'm starting to grow in confidence after the draft. I saw a lot of pieces that were added. We had a needs draft. We had a value versus needs draft, and which is not uncommon for this staff. But picking up the players that we did this year, being able to move back and get up some extra picks, and being able to fill some of those needs with quality football players who have the opportunity to grow and stay long-term with this team, I think it's a great, great outlook. So I feel a lot more confident now. But I mean, to answer your overall question, I think this is the most talented overall roster we've had in probably 2 decades. If you want me to be all honest, I think that 2016 team that had Kurt and the receiving core that we did, it was right up there. But this team, in my opinion, is more complete on both sides of the football. So I'm looking forward to what I think could set up to be a good season if we stay healthy and come out hot.
That's awesome. That's a great point, actually. I do think our team's I like the way Ron Rivera's been building the team over the past couple of years. We definitely had some deficits. I feel like he is starting to refill and kind of add some depth to our offense. I think our offense is pretty deep in regard to quarterback. I don't think you're a Taylor Heineke guy, if I remember correctly, right? You don't like Heineke, but you like Wentz. Is that what it is?
Well, so I hate to say this way, but I think Taylor hamstrung this last year. I was a big Scott Turner guy. I've always been a Scott Turner guy. I love the vertical offense. I think Scott got hamstrung last year and was forced to play checkers or chess with checkers because Heineke just didn't have the arm to press the ball on the field. Now, that being said, I definitely don't dislike Heineke. I love his story. I love his passion. I love his desire, grit, moxie, whatever you want to call it. But when push comes to shove, I just expected a little bit more of that position. And I don't like to see a quarterback come in that can't make all the plays because of physical limitations. And I feel Taylor is in that boat. And as much as I love to see him succeed, I think Wentz is a much better position for immediate success with this team just because of the physical attributes that he has at quarterback.
Yeah, I agree. So I guess you're a proponent of the trade. You didn't think the trade was too much to offer for Washington.
Well, it was funny because I keep talking to a lot of people about it, and I've popped on to Sirius XM Radio, Jim and Pat show a couple different times. And the first time I was on Jim and Pat show was back in February. So we were bullshitting about the Commanders, and listen, Jim's a straight shooter, but Pat's fun. He's got a little bit of personality to him. So I'm like, Pat, listen, I got to float this by you. You tell me honestly, what do you think about this? Carson Wentz. And he paused. He took a long pause and he was like, He goes, I don't really like it. And he went on to tell me why. And he goes, what are your thoughts about Carson? I said, in all honesty, Pat, I think would be a great addition to this team. I said, I've been one of his proponents for a long time since I heard he may be getting out. I was actually on his side when Philly was moving him to Indy the following or the previous year. I thought he would be a good fit in this offense, but I understand that they didn't want to trade him within the division. So that made a lot of sense. But I was a fan, and I actually went on to social media beginning part of maybe it was late February, early March, before the trade actually happened. And I actually posted what I thought it would take to get him, and it ended up being exactly what we paid for him. So
I do remember that. I'll give you credit for that. I do remember you had a little blurb about 2/3 or maybe like a conditional third to bump up to a second. Like you nailed it. I do remember that tweet. Good call, bro.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. So yeah, I've been on the Carson bandwagon for a little while. I mean, I thought he was tremendous in Philly. He used to frustrate the hell out of me because he used to do that duck move where Montez Sweat would be coming in there looking to wrap him up, and all of a sudden, boop.
He would kill Kerrigan too. Exactly right. But go ahead.
he did the Kerrigan. He did it to Sweat. I think he did it to Payne one time too. And I was going nuts in that game. I was like, God damn it, get this boy on the ground. But he's a good athlete. I tell you what, and he's smart. He's smart as a whip. If he can get his head on straight, get those demons out of his ears. Stop seeing ghosts out there in the field. He can be real successful. And shit, when's the last time we've seen a 27-7 season out of a quarterback?
Exactly right. Been a very long time. I think 1967 was the last time Washington broke 30 touchdowns. So ideally, we can hopefully get that broken this year. And I agree with you, man. I think Carson Wentz has all the physical tools. I believe he's like, he's 6'5", right? He's 6'5", over 220 pounds, something large like that. He has that physical toolkit. He's smart as a whip too. I think some of the criticism against him has been he's maybe too smart and maybe talks back to the coaches. I've heard some things like that, but honestly, he is as good as quarterback we've had in years. And I think he does compare to Kirk Cousins. And, people kind of hate on Kirk Cousins in regard to his clutch factor. Obviously I discredit, I can kind of knock on that a little bit. But for the most part, I do think that Kirk was a good quarterback. I think Wentz can be too. I just hope that he can fit into our system. And I guess it goes back to our point. Or do you like Scott Turner? I know you kind of dropped it a little bit that you do like him. Like, do you think him and Wentz are going to fit together? And what do you see in there?
Yeah, I mean, you look at Wentz being in the West Coast offense before, but he wasn't the type of guy to take the check down. He liked to go deep. So with Turner's offense, it's predicated on play action passes. It's predicated on, deep posts, corners, go routes with an under route underneath. He loves doing that. He loves running the crossers out of multiple formations. You're getting those natural picks and rubs. He'll run black screens, tunnel screens, or run some bubbles, jets, stuff like that. So I think that all fits in really good with what Carson wants. But you're looking at a touchdown to check down. Give him 3 reads, give him systems to go into, give him concepts to go into where he's looking touchdown to check down, because that's his strength. I mean,
he is.
I want to say last year, don't hold me to this exact number, but I think on deep balls, he had an IQR of 109 on deep ball percentage, which was the highest in the NFL. And the next 4 quarterbacks below him were Joe Burrow, Herbert, Allen, and Brady, if I'm not mistaken.
Good company.
That's a pretty good company when you're looking at deep ball IQR.
No, very good. What I like about Wentz as well is I think with that intelligence, from what I understand, when he went to Indianapolis, they gave him full autonomy at the line in regard to protections and basically an audibling as well. So I do think that it will bring a creative factor to our offense. And it does seem like what you were talking about, the jet screen, the tunnel screens, all those different types of routes that we have, our wide receiving set actually matches pretty well to what Scott Turner wants to do. So let's kind of talk about that. Were you a fan of the Jahan Dotson pick at 16? How do you feel about that? And how do you think he's going to work off of Curtis Samuel and Terry McLaurin and even Dimey Brown?
I mean, so being a big Penn State guy, I watched, Dotson since he was a freshman, since he came in there from Nazareth High School. So I knew a lot about him. I think I actually watched him play in some different games when he was in Nazareth. So tremendous athlete, tremendous talent, amazing catch guy with a catch radius that you wouldn't think from a 5'11" receiver. I was a little disappointed when we made that pick because I wanted to move back, so that kind of fit right in my wheelhouse. But I was thinking bigger receiver. Burks was honestly my guy in the trade back. I love Treylon Burks. I thought he could bring a lot of different things to that offense that we didn't have currently. And I saw Dotson as someone that was a little bit it almost seemed a little bit redundant because we almost had that type of receiver in Curtis, in Dami, although Dami does not run the route tree that Dotson does. So after I kind of sat on it and slept on it overnight, I felt a lot better. I knew he was a great talent. I was just looking for a different type of piece, but that's being me. Hell, this kid's phenomenal. He's under a 4.4 guy. I know he ran a 4.43 at the combine, but he was timed as low as a 4.33 at Penn State. So the kid can fly.
Yeah, exactly. I was listening to Chris Clues on the Kevin Sheehan show and was like, dude, it just pops off the tape. He ran a 4.4, low 4.4 during the combine or the pro day. And he was like, this guy's a natural 4.3. This guy looks like it on tape. He's going to pull away from people. So it's awesome. So I'm really excited about that. Where do you see him fitting in our offense? Do you think he's going to be more of a slot guy, more on the outside, or is it going to be fully interchangeable? I feel like he's going to move around often. So I think Scott Turner kind of has the autonomy, but where do you see Jahan Dotson thriving in Washington?
Yeah, I mean, Jahan played the majority of his college career at the outside. I mean, I can see him. To me, he stands out as a traditional Z wide receiver where you're keeping him off the line of scrimmage because he does. I mean, you get a big physical cornerback, and he's not the biggest guy in the world. So he can struggle getting off of a press coverage. So you keep him as a Z where you keep him off and give him that 2 to 3 yards as a free release. He's got the moves and shake to get by the defender. So I think he's a move Z that can also go into the slot and run any route from the slot position as well. So I think you'll see him move around a little bit. But I think if you look at this potential wide receiver core, you look at Terry playing the X. He's much like Pierre Garcon was back when Garcon was here. Garcon was a great X.
I love Garcon. Yep.
Terry's faster.
Yeah.
Probably not quite as physical, but
yeah, I was going to say, I think Garcon's more physical, more prone to go over the middle and fight for yards. I can see that for sure. But go ahead. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, but I can see him playing the X. I can see, John playing the Z, and I can see Curtis lining up in the slot and also getting some backfield touches. But you want to keep Curtis close to the ball because they'll use him on jet sweeps. They'll use him on bubble screens a little bit. They'll motion him into the backfield. So you want to kind of have that guy in the slot that's going to be a little bit closer and able to move around a little bit. But listen, all three of those guys can play any position on the football field at the wideout position. So I think we're in really, really good situational football acumen with those guys and where they can line up.
Yeah,
so it doesn't really pigeonhole one of those guys.
Gotcha. Do you think Scott Turner has any type of warm seat in regards? I know he's got an extension for a couple more years, but do you think should there be criticism of Scott Turner if a team doesn't thrive this year? Because I feel like he does have the skill set and he does have the tools this year. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question, George. And we've discussed this quite a bit, not only on social media, on Twitter, but we've also discussed it on Hawks Haven. And I've been one of his biggest fans. I think he can I don't think it was fair to grade him these past
he was limited.
Years.
I agree with you. Yeah, I agree.
So to give a fair grade on Scott, I think this is going to be the year where we can actually see what he can do. He finally has a quarterback that doesn't have to worry about making all the passes. He finally has the offensive weapons, including 3 running backs that offer completely different skill sets that he can use interchangeably with one another, which is going to be absolutely amazing.
Awesome. I love it. Exactly.
Yeah. If you get that tight end back, if we can get Logan back healthy, I mean, that's going to open up the offense for him. But I mean, listen, a guy like Cole Turner, God, he was a receiver before. Amazing catch radius, not the fastest guy in the world. He's going to run like a 4.7, but Bates ran a 4.85, so I mean, he's faster than Bates. He's not going to be an inline guy, but you can split him out, use him as a jumbo wide receiver. It's going to give Turner so many more options. Listen, you want to go big, you bring in Cam Sims, you bring in Turner, you bring in 2 tight end sets. You want to go fast and small, you bring in Curtis and you bring in Jahan and run them with Terry. And we have so many different options.
I love it. Very multiple offense for sure. I agree with that. So talk about tight end, right? So Logan Thomas, basically, I actually listened to a podcast of Bram Weinstein talking about he reached out to Logan Thomas at the draft party and had a kind of a candid conversation. And Logan's like, I don't see myself necessarily practicing over the summer. Like, my goal is to basically be ready by game 1, but this summer I might be limited, not even participating in training camp. If Logan Thomas basically isn't ready by week 1, who do you think takes a start who's the starting tight end week 1, you think?
I mean, you're still going to look at Bates being the starting tight end. I mean, you can line him. He's going to be an inline guy, though. He's not going to be a move tight end. So you're basically putting him in line. You're asking him to block, and he can be sneaky as a receiver, go out and run some choice routes, run the seam route. I don't think we're going to have any issues with him being a tight end. But when you look at bringing in a guy like Turner, I mean, Turner's going to give that offense a different dynamic, whether you're going 22 personnel, whether you're going 12 personnel, whatever it is. I think he's going to play significantly this year. I think he's going to make an impact, whether you see that impact being like a 40 catch 400 type of, yard receiving year. Maybe he dips a little bit lower than that, but I think it's going to depend on Logan. But ultimately, I think he's the next guy waiting in the wings.
I agree to that.
Logan is not back, or if Logan is, we eventually move on for him just because of age, whatever.
No, I agree. I'm definitely excited about the opportunities. I love what you were just telling me about the whole multiple perspectives about speed set, big set, things like that. I think we do have a lot of options here in Washington. What I do like maybe Logan Thomas being the inline tight end and a 2 tight end set, and putting Cole Turner as a big slot, giving that big red zone opportunity, or like the green zone from the 20-yard going in into the red zone. I think he does have the opportunity there. I'm kind of excited about that. Before we move over to the defense, how do you feel about the draft in general? Were you happy with Dodson and Phil Mathis and Brian Robinson? Do you think that Washington stretched themselves, maybe kind of overreached on some players? Or do you think it was the prudent decision to kind of keep building our team and kind of trying to win now and trying to see what Carson Wentz can do? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I love the trade back, first of all. Okay. The trade back was amazing. I thought we got good value out of the trade back. I mean, we use a different chart now. I mean, most of us are kind of off the Jimmy Johnson chart. So I think that trade back and the new charts that they projected, it was pretty fair, in all honesty. But you have to have a partner. And I know there was people saying that we had multiple calls. We don't know. We weren't in that draft. But we found the partner. We moved back just enough to be able to land our guy and not give up too many picks, where we were at the back end of that draft with 4 wide receiver needy teams picking ahead of us. That was the key for us to stay in front of some of those teams, in my opinion. Yeah. So I thought it was a great trade.
Before you move on, was there anybody that you wanted at 11, or were you a Kyle Hamilton guy? Did you want Jameson Williams? Would you have stayed for Olave, or do you think that just trading back was more smart, more prudent altogether? What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, definitely more prudent trading back altogether. If we stayed at 11, I was kind of hoping that we got the bigger receiver like London maybe would fall to us. I was not a Kyle Hamilton guy.
Okay.
I was not on board with going defensive non premium position
Mhm.
again, which would have
I
been the
agree.
fifth time in 5 years.
I agree,
So I
100%.
think I beat that drum ad nauseum, and I feel bad for doing it, but
No, I actually remember that. I think you and I were retweeting each other. We're definitely
yes,
like,
we did.
it's like the non-premium position, the linebacker positions and the defensive lineman. Like you got to go big, cornerback or wide receiver or a big wide receiver, or big wide receiver in general. So I agree with you there. So I guess, but going back to our original question, pick 11. Who I guess it would have been Drake London, I guess, right?
I mean, if London was on the board, I think my number one receiver was Wilson. So I
Okay,
loved
I like
Wilson, but
Wilson
I
too.
thought he was going to be off the board, before we ended up picking. So I kind of like was falling, if we stayed at 11, was falling on London, and
Hmm.
listen, if there was one of the three offensive tackles that slid, I didn't think that would happen. But if that was the case and one of those receivers weren't there, I was still fine taking an offensive tackle at 11.
Hmm.
Just didn't think we'd see either one of those guys, nor did I think we would see either of the two cornerbacks. So
Hmm.
the trade back was ideal for me. I have some issues with the second and third round picks. I mean,
Okay.
that was where I thought we reached a little bit, and I didn't think we needed to take Mathis as high as we did.
Hmm.
Listen, he may turn out to be a hell of a football player. I know that he's going to play the one technique. I know he can probably also play a little bit of the three technique, and he covers those linebackers a little bit better.
Hmm.
And that's important because Cole Holcomb missed 15 tackles last year, and he had a
Hmm.
9.8% missed tackle, broken tackle rate, which is very high for a linebacker.
Hmm.
So I'm concerned about that. We need to keep those guys clean and give them
Hmm.
holes to flash into. So if he can do that, kudos to him. I just thought there was better value if we moved into the third, fourth round and picked up a defensive tackle there. And I'm not going to beat this drum, but I wanted to re-sign Settle. So
Yeah.
that
I
was
think
that
most
was
people
that
did.
was
I think most people did. I agree to that. Was there anybody in the second round that you preferred over Mathis? I'm sure there's a couple.
I was thinking tight end going into that second round. I think
McBride.
McBride was the guy that I was really eyeing up. I mean, that would have been a beautiful pick. But yeah, the Mathis pick caught me off guard. Brisker was interesting because you can probably plug him in as the Buffalo nickel and let
Hmm.
him, do some roaming, let him play a little bit of robber. You can move Curl around. It would give us a little bit more options. So I liked him.
As a Penn
Um,
State guy, did you think Brisker was? Do you think he's pro ready?
I think he's pro ready. He
Okay.
came from a junior college, LJC, so um, knew a guy that coached him there, and he spoke
Okay.
very highly of Brisker. So when Brisker came to Penn State, he was nothing but a leader on and off the field. So
Gotcha.
loved his game. Didn't think he would fit purely as a free safety. He's just not a free safety. He's a
Hmm.
box guy, but
Hmm.
we could have used him, and that would have been another linebacker. He could have taken over for Landon Collins. So I
Hmm.
thought that would have been a wise pick. It would have been, definitely had some value, and it would have met a need. Um, but tight end was where I was really looking. But I think we picked up a good guy in the fifth. I mean, it was a little bit later than I had hoped, but I think
Yeah.
it was a good pick.
Yeah. I gotcha. And then real quick before we go over to defense, Brian Robinson. What are your thoughts on him?
I love Brian Robinson. Wasn't anticipating us picking him in the third round, but I had mocked Brian Robinson in a couple mock drafts going into the fourth round. But if you really look at our third round pick, it was essentially a fourth round pick anyway because it was late
Hmm.
third round.
Hmm.
So I didn't have a problem with the Brian Robinson pick. I thought originally he may have went a little bit high, but he's a good back. He's a complete back. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. People don't give him as much credit there as he should. He's a
Yeah.
saving
35
back.
catches, I think.
Yeah, and he put his time in too, George. I mean, that
Hmm.
was the thing. He sat behind some good guys at Alabama, and he probably could have transferred out of there and played 3 years at another school, another P5
Shows
school. But
character, right? He definitely fifth year senior, sitting behind Najee Harris and all those other guys. He's kind of just like
yeah,
waiting, and you know he's going to have some high character and hard work ethic coming from that Alabama program too. So it's definitely a positive there. Would you have gone a different running back direction, or were you just happy with him altogether?
I was pretty happy with him. In all
Okay.
honesty, I mean, I think he gives us a little bit of a different style back than what we
Hmm.
see with Gibby and what we see with McKissick.
Yeah.
McKissick's obviously small, jukey guy. I mean, Robinson's a one-cut guy. Get upfield, plant your foot in the ground, run people over, a little bit of a battering ram.
Hmm.
So I think he's going to fit as a nice complement to Gibson, and he doesn't have a lot of wear in the tires already, so
Hmm.
that's good. I mean,
That
when
is a
you
good
look at a
idea.
running back
That's a
coming out
good
of
point,
college,
actually. I think he had maybe like 200 carries or something, or
yeah,
like his senior year or whatever it was. But it was like he didn't really touch it at all going into his senior year. So he is pretty young, fresh in the legs going into the pro ready part. So it's pretty cool. So I like that. What are your? I know it's kind of controversial because I've heard different people, and I do respect your opinion. Him as a pass blocker, like I think he's a pretty good pass blocker. Like, have you looked at that yet? Okay, can you hear me at all or no? I can hear you. Okay. So Mark's going to basically restart his phone and come right back. So what I'm going to ask basically is whether Brian Robinson is a good pass blocker, and I think he probably is. I do see. Let me let him back in real quick. Was that Mark? You hear me?
I can hear you.
All right, cool. Yeah, so going back to that point, I was talking about Brian Robinson. I've talked to a couple content creators now. What are your thoughts on him as a pass blocker? Because I do think that's going to be his entry onto the field. If he can pass block, like he'll be getting on the field more often. He's going to be more of a first and second down rusher. But I think he can pass block. Have you looked at that yet? Have you watched any film on him about that, or what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I did watch a little film. He's not afraid to stick his nose in there. I mean,
Mhm.
he does a decent job getting the head up and arching the back. Where a lot of times you see these running backs in college, they'll keep their head down, they'll miss their target.
Mhm.
But he does a good job arching and staying in front of his guy. So he's not afraid to chip. I've seen him chip a little bit in games, and that was pretty solid. He'll chip and then go on an angle route too. So he's got those abilities. Definitely not afraid to stick his head in there. So I don't think it's going to be a hard transition. Gibby had a little bit difficult transition coming in because he wasn't a typical running back at Memphis. So I think you'll see Robinson really catch on towards the second half of the year. I think he's going to be an asset for us in that area.
I agree. I think it's another tool in the toolkit. And I think just playing these different teams, every once in a while you play like those, 17 game seasons, you're going to play a team that's like the lower end of the rush defense, regard to stopping the run. I think he's going to be that battering ram and that closer in the fourth quarter. So I am looking forward to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
How do you feel about Antonio Gibson? Are you a Gibson guy?
I'm a Gibson guy. He's just got to be able to hold him to the football.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's got a tremendous skill set. He's explosive. He showed it on that screen last year that he took to the
Mm-hmm.
house. That was an exciting play. He's great out of the backfield, and I think we'll see more of that from him. Great hands. I mean, you can use him in the slot. You can use him on a flare. You can use him down the field. He can match up against a linebacker, and no one's going to be able to cover him one-on-one. So I love the ability that he brings to us. I think he just needs to get a little bit more consistent. We saw better patience from him last year.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought he was running a lot better during the second half of the year when the patience came along.
Mm-hmm.
But, we still keep seeing the eyes. We pointed to the eyes a lot. And I think he needs to trust his eyes a little bit better. And his vision, coming into the NFL is not what you would see from a typical guy that played 2 or 3 years in college at running back. So there are things that he can improve on, but I think they're going to come with time. He's still a young guy, so I think he's going to get it.
Gotcha. All right, so let me pose the question before we kind of transition. Offense versus defense, right? Which side of the field is a bigger concern for you? Which is more talented? Do you think the defense is kind of like they underperformed last year, but they have the talent, or do you think the offense is kind of overtaken that at this point?
Well, I think the offense grew by leaps and bounds this offseason. The defense really didn't do much. They stayed pretty much stagnant. We can talk about losing some offensive linemen, but we picked up some guys, and I think we have guys in like Norwell and Turner that can definitely step in and play as good or close to what we saw last year from Sheriff and Flowers. So defense did not live up to expectations. I have some criticisms of Del Rio and the way he puts players in certain positions. I don't think we're giving our guys the opportunity to succeed early. And we're not playing into their strengths. And I hope we can get that to click early this year, because we can't go another 6-game stretch with guys being played out of position again. It just can't happen. I mean, there was no reason that we had to bring Jamin Davis in and play him at Mike. He wasn't ready. And we should have saw that in the preseason. Listen, made that change early on. William Jackson III, he's a press man cover. Why are you trying to play him in so much cover 3 zone? Let him play to his strengths. Fuller, we saw him playing on the inside early. He didn't do that bad, but he missed a lot of tackles from that slot position. When you moved him to the outside, he became a rock. So I hope we see Del Rio take advantage of the talent he has and do it early this year, so we don't have to go through that 6-game stretch of miscommunications and guys being played out of position and looking like we're running around with chickens with our head cut off back there.
That's like a Washington staple, right? For some reason or another, we can't get our defense to communicate with each other. I have no idea what's going on. So it's just interesting. Speaking of Jamin Davis, right? I kind of felt like he was somewhat of a reach in the first round last year. I liked him. I thought he was a good height, weight, speed guy. He didn't really have a lot of experience at Kentucky. You could just tell that he was kind of a more like a see ball, get ball kind of a linebacker, and you kind of hope he translates to that at the professional level. Where do you see him fitting? It seems like he's going to kind of trend towards a weak side linebacker. And then do you think who's going to play the Mike? Are you comfortable with Cole Holcomb doing that? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I'm comfortable with Holcomb. I said that last year. I thought Holcomb should have been given the opportunity to play the Mike last year. He's super athletic, which is what they want in a linebacker. We saw him cover Zeke out of the backfield on a wheel route, and he was stride for stride, turned his head perfectly, and you couldn't have played it any better in hip trail than he played that. I mean, he played it like a cornerback. So he has the ability. He just needs to practice and have a full season, especially the offseason, coming in there and being the leader of that defense. But he wore the green dot last year, so I mean, it wasn't a big deal. He's going to be able to communicate those coverage assignments and those shifts to the team. So I think he'll be fine there. He just needs to get the confidence back up. But with Davis, he's definitely a field linebacker. I mean, he was a field linebacker from the day I laid eyes on him. I don't know why we put him in Mike, but I can see him playing. I mean, you look at his college tape. I mean, the guy did phenomenal covering slot receivers, and from big time programs. Yeah. And man, that's where I want to see him. I want to see him playing that field position, out there jacking guys off of their routes, knocking people down, being able to chase the ball carrier, firing gaps, being able to blitz off the C. I mean, that's what he's going to be good at. So put him in that position early this year is going to be a huge asset to our defense and that whole group.
I agree. I definitely agree. In regard to linebackers altogether, do you think Washington, is that a big area of concern for you? How do you feel about that? Should Washington pursue a depth linebacker, a veteran? I think there's AJ Klein and there's Dante Hightower on the waiver wires. There's various other people out there. Or do you think Washington should pursue them? Do you think they should just kind of roll with David Mayo, maybe develop some of these undrafted free agents they picked up? Like, what would be your method of solving that issue?
So going into the offseason, I was hoping we would do a lot of linebacker. I was hoping, we would target some big names there. And, as these names started to sign and we started to, see that we were just going to sit in our hands and not really do anything, then the picture became a little bit more clear that, hey, they're going to give Cole every opportunity to play Mike. Joe Schobert was a guy that I was hoping we would bring in, He's
still available. Is he still available? I think he is, right? Or did he get picked up? Okay, good. Okay.
Unless he got picked up this week and it just flew under my radar, he is still available.
That's what I thought too.
Good cover guy. Good cover guy when he was with Cleveland. He's a tough-nosed linebacker that knows how to play the game, but you can use him in different roles. But we're seeing 2 linebacker sets. So our base is going into 2 linebackers. I mean, we're looking at playing a Buffalo nickel as our hybrid defender, or we're playing a slot cornerback there. So if you look at 2 linebackers and we have, maybe say we keep 5 linebackers on the roster, we probably keep Mayo because he's a veteran guy, but maybe keep Hudson and maybe keep, another one of these younger guys that can be an up-and-comer. But you're seeing 2 linebacker sets become the norm in the NFL. So I think I'm kind of comfortable with the direction we're going at right now. Would it be great to see, a veteran come in there just in case? Sure. But is it necessary if we think we have our Mike and Will right now and we're going to play that 90% of the time? Maybe not.
Did you study Hudson in college? There's no pressure if you didn't. Like, I just know, like, he played the Viper position and kind of more flexible at Michigan. But like, we heard good things about him and potential with him, but he barely got on the field. Do you think he could have that late career, not late career, but a couple of years into his career renaissance, or do you think he is what he is at this point? How do you feel about Hudson?
So Hudson, I studied Hudson in high school. So he came out of McKeesport. So I watched him and some of his games as a junior and senior. So he was a safety and he was being recruited by a couple of different schools, including Penn State as a safety. And Penn State decided they didn't want to take him. And he was ready to give his commitment there. So he ended up going to Michigan, and he was a Don Brown guy for all those years. Now, Don Brown was notorious for having, different visions, and he was a great defensive coordinator. So he used Hudson the right way when you saw him being used in that Viper role, basically that money backer role there, where he was a hybrid safety, and now you're using him as a linebacker. The thing is, they tried to play him a little bit at the Mike last year. And I don't think he was a Mike linebacker. He's a Will linebacker all the way. He's a run and chase guy, just like Davis is. Can he make that transition? I mean, that's a big question. I don't know. It's I see him more as a special teams guy. I can see that. But it would be nice to see him step up and kind of fit a role on that defense, maybe as that big Buffalo nickel. I think I have more hope in that position for Derek Forrest. In all honesty.
Okay, cool. Okay. What do you like about Derek Forrest?
Well, I tell you what I don't like about Derek Forrest. First of all, we watched last game.
Sounds good. Yeah, let it go.
Him chase the reverse. Remember he chased that reverse?
Yeah.
All the way from the left side of the field to the right side of the field, and the reverse actually ran away.
I do remember that, actually. Yeah.
And I'm just like sitting there like, what are you doing? And then we just saw some plays where he just looked like he was just not comfortable in the defense. Yeah. But I think he got injured and came back later on, and he played okay later on. He was in position more often. He didn't make a lot of plays. I think he ended up with like 14 total tackles or something like that. It wasn't a lot, but he was a big hitter who's athletic when he was in college, and he can cover. So
Yeah.
if you look at that type of position and what they want out of the Buffalo nickel, he may be the guy that can kind of take over for Collins there, and you can kind of mold him how you want him.
Mm-hmm. So speaking to Collins, I know we're kind of talked about him ad nauseum as a fan base. Would you pursue him? Would you like? I know he's a potential June 1st cut. I know it's kind of like in his wheelhouse in regard to bringing him back. Like from what I understand, we offered him a pay cut initially. He said he would. The second pay cut was kind of more of an insult for him. And then now, from what I'm catching from John Kahn, kind of like very subtly, that it's basically in Landon Collins' wheelhouse whether he comes back or not. Like, is he willing to come back? If you're Ron Rivera, would you be interested in? Do you think Landon Collins is a key addition to us, or do you think we should continue this whole youth movement and kind of look into Percy Butler and Derek Forrest and maybe some other options? What are your thoughts?
I mean, I would definitely look to bring him back. I mean, you can probably give him a contract, between $3 and $4 million a year with incentives that bump him up to 7 or 8. Is he willing to play for that? That's the big question. Is it going to be a pride issue? I hope not. But, when it really comes down to it, you swallow your pride and you do what's best for your team and you do what's best for you and your family. So if he's not getting offers out there in the open market, he's likely going to get a 1-year deal at a pretty low salary. So why not come back with a team that a team that knows how you play?
Defined role.
Yeah, accept that role. Accept what you are. I mean, you're not a safety in this league anymore. You're a hybrid linebacker.
And he actually played pretty well. The second half of the year, I thought he played pretty well. I was pretty happy with him, actually. You feel pretty good about him?
Yeah. I agree. I thought he played excellent. I thought once he got his feet underneath him and he kind of adapted that position, said, hey, this is what I am, you saw him make some great plays. Now, if you look at the year before, when they were playing him down in the box, how many times he would come in on the goal line, he would shoot the gap. He made a hell of a lot of plays in the backfield, and that's what he can do in that role. But he still wanted to be that safety and be labeled as a safety. So I think he was, just kind of pushing back a little bit. But if he accepts that role, I would welcome him back with open arms.
I agree. I wouldn't mind Collins back either. What are your overall thoughts about the defensive backs? How do you feel about our cornerback depth? Are you confident in them? I know Benjamin Saint-Juste has concussion issues. We talked about William Jackson. From what I gather, you might know better than me, but looking at the whole contract issues, I believe William Jackson and Fuller are easily, they can be removed, they can be cut next year without that much of a dead cap. Do you feel comfortable with them, or how do you feel about them? Is that a high need for next year in the first round draft? What are your thoughts on our defensive backs, and I don't know, just give me your perspective on that.
So DB is definitely a position I would look for next year, because I think what you said just rings true. Both of those guys are under contract. We can't cut them this year. Next year, there would be guys that you can move on for, maybe with a combined $7 million. You can move on from each one of them, but they're both relatively young. Jackson's 29. I think Fuller's 27. So they're not old guys. William Jackson's still a hell of a player. He's only been in the league for 6 years.
Yeah, maybe less than something like that.
Like he's been a lot more than that. But I think if you use him correctly, I think he still has a lot of potential in this defense to be able to be a great player for us. So I'm very comfortable with those two as starters right now. Can Saint-Juste be that guy? I mean, listen, he had amazing short area quickness. His 3-cone drill, his short shuttle were some of the best in the entire combine. So he has the footwork necessary to be able to excel at cornerback, and he has the length that coaches covet. Can he get past these concussion things? Hopefully. Where I'm a little bit nervous is the depth behind those guys. When we have Danny Johnson, Corn Elder, we really don't have a lot of quality depth. I wish we would have brought back, I wish we'd have kept Jimmy Moreland. I don't understand why.
I love Moreland. Yeah, exactly right. I agree with you. I agree. Yeah. Were you a Bradbury guy? Or did you want Washington to pursue him, or do you think he was overpriced? Or was he not? I know he's more of a zone guy. We played more of a man at the end of the year. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I wasn't the Bradbury guy. I thought Bradbury was a little bit too overhyped. I mean, a couple of years ago, he was playing some good football, but I think his play has declined recently. We saw Terry abuse him when we played him both.
That's true.
Yeah, he's going to be his own guy. He's going to be a guy that gets his interceptions by, trying to bait quarterbacks and jump passes, especially when he's dropping in the hook curl and floating into that high hole zone. Do we need that in that team? I don't think. I think I think we're fine. I didn't want to spend $10 million on a guy when we already have money tied up into the other two other guys who I think are better. I think it was Grant Paulson put a tweet out there saying, hey, cornerback 1 in the Redskins. Why am I saying Redskins? I can't believe that. It's never going to die, brother.
No, I won't.
So he's like, the Commanders could have had their CB1. And I'm like, well, first of all, Fuller and Jackson played better than he did last year, even Jackson limited time. So I don't understand where that's coming from. There was no merit behind it. He didn't back it up with any stats or anything like that. But Bradbury played worse than both of those corners last year. So I did not think that was going to be a wise move for us to go after him, nor did I think it was ever going to happen.
Gotcha. All right, so let's do two more questions. We can wrap it up. So let's talk the big picture view, holistic NFL view. Where do you think Washington is in this NFC East race? Like, do you think we can potentially win the division this year? And in your opinion, who is the biggest threat, the Cowboys or the Eagles? Or if you want to get that wild card, that dark horse, the Giants? What do you think?
So I can't go the Giants. I mean, I do think they improved their football team. I mean, especially on the offensive line. But the Cowboys are still the team that I think is going to be the most challenging in the division. But everyone's saying that the Eagles have done more this offseason than pretty much everyone in the NFL, including Denver, who pulled in Russell Wilson. So I don't know. I'm nervous about the Eagles, but I also think that their offense and defensive line is not as strong as those great Eagles teams we saw, 10 years ago. So I think that that's going to be an area that they're going to need to build up over the future before they become a legitimate contender. But I am nervous about those receivers because you do have some serious threats.
Yeah.
And not only speed and size, but you have the height too with Brown there. So can they challenge? Yes. I would never overlook Philadelphia. I just don't think they have a quarterback that's going to take them very far right now. I think that they will probably be one of those teams looking to upgrade quarterback next year when like Bryce Young and Stroud and that group comes out.
2 first-round picks too. Exactly. Yeah. So considering that, right? So I don't want to put any pressure on you in May. We basically have the Eagles, Cowboys, Redskins. I'm sorry, Commanders.
Yeah,
you did it to me. You did it to me. All right. So basically, they're all kind of lobbying for that NFC East title. I doubt that basically all three of them are going to go to the playoffs. Which one would, in your opinion, right now? I don't want to put any pressure on you. Which one is the odd team looking out come, I guess, December?
Well, that's gonna be a tough question. I mean, there is a lot of pressure saying that. I still think we can win 10 games. I think 10 games gets us in. I don't think a 9-8 season does. So I think if we come out and we take care of business in the first 2 games, it's going to set us up for future success. It's going to give this team a little confidence. It's going to give a boost to the coaching staff. And if we play to potential on both sides of the football, I see a 10-win season and us getting into the playoffs. Be it as a wild card, that's fine. But yeah, all you got to do is get a ticket.
Get a tournament, maybe. Exactly right.
So yeah, I'll take us. I'll take us as that second team from the division making the playoffs.
So us and the Cowboys, what you're saying?
That would be my guess right now. Yeah,
that's kind of where I'm at too. So last question, we can bring it on home, right? So you talked about success. We're talking about Washington, potentially making the playoffs. Who is the most important person on offense for Washington to succeed, and who's the most important person on defense, in your opinion?
Yeah, so absolutely. Carson Wentz on offense, 100%. There's no doubt in my mind. I think he has all the ability in the world. I'm a big believer in Carson. I think he's going to come in here. I think he's going to go for over 30 touchdowns, throw single-digit interceptions. Maybe you see 33-10, something like that. But I think he's going to have a monster year. So he's our most important piece on offense. On defense, I'm going to say that the defensive line, who underperformed last year as a whole, they have to step up. We're all going to want to point the finger at Young and Sweat, but I think the interior guys need to do a better job keeping those linebackers clean. And, Allen's a beast, but we're really going to need to see a good rotation in there of guys. Payne's got to step up. Mathis has to step up. If those guys do their job and they open up the lanes for the outside rushers and they keep our linebackers clean, that defense is going to be a much better unit than what we saw last year.
100%. Actually, let me cheat and give you one more question. Do you want Payne? Fine. Do you want Payne back? Would you resign Payne?
I would if the price is right. Yeah, if the price is right. He's a young guy. He came out when he was 20 years old, so he's still young. He's got a lot of potential. He fits well into this defense. I mean, 3 Alabama guys in that front. I mean, for the long haul. Yeah, if we can sign him to a good contract that's, friendly for the team, friendly for him, I would welcome him back. Absolutely. I hate to see players that we develop leave.
Yeah.
I don't think he's been, a home run first-round pick. I was always the Derwin James guy.
No, I was definitely a Derwin James guy, 100%. Totally. So, yeah, right there with you. But go ahead. I'm sorry, I got you off.
No. I just think that he would be he's been here. The continuity is huge. So I think having him back at a good rate, even if it's a 3-year deal, would be fabulous. But I know we have to pay a lot of guys. I know we got to pay Terry. We're gonna have to pay Montez. We're gonna have to pay Chase pretty soon. But I do want to give one shout out. I gave more than one shout out to the defense, and I only said Carson Wentz on offense. But you know who's going to be another important piece, and everyone overlooks this individual?
Who's that?
Chase Roulier.
Really? Okay. Why do you say that?
So Chase is one of the smartest guys on this football team. Chase is a rock. He is, in my opinion, our best offensive lineman, and he has been for a few years. Listen, Brandon Sheriff was a beast, but Brandon Sheriff didn't stay that healthy. So I love Chase. I think he's a top 5 center in this league. I've said it many times. People disagree with me, and I've gotten into a little bit of heated debate over that, but you're not going to find a better team guy, a better leader who's leads by example, and a smart guy who can set protections. And that is so important to have.
The center's underrated. For the casual fan, they don't understand how important the center is in regard to setting protections, just being consistent every single game. I agree with you on that 100%.
Well, Hog Farmer Chris and I, we've already said, Chris, and if you're listening out there, if you listen later, whatever, Chris and I won our Chase Roulier jerseys. We won our white number 73 jerseys. So
hell yeah, man.
Jason, if you're listening, send them out.
That's awesome, man. So, Mark, I really appreciate catching up with you. Definitely a very intelligent, smart guy. I love hearing the X and O talk. That's definitely really cool, really refreshing to hear that. Before we sign off, tell the listeners where they can find you. What are some upcoming products you have? Just kind of, tell us, break it down. Where are you at?
Yeah. So come on over to Hogs Haven, www.hogshaven.com. Join the group over there. We're always putting out articles. We're always trying to, put things out that are thought-provoking, create discussion in the comment section. We always love to have new people come over. And, over the past 3 or 4 years, I've become much more active on Twitter. So I was kind of quiet on Twitter up until then, but, always love to have the interaction. I welcome it. I love debating. I love our fans. People think I'm a crotchety old man that's going to yell at the crowd or something like that, because I'm always bitching and complaining, but it's just passion. It's honestly passion.
It is passion, man.
Yeah,
it's 100%. We're sitting here May 19th just talking for an hour about football. I love it, man. It's perfect.
And I can sit here and talk all night about football. That's just how I feel about it. So yeah, George, I appreciate you having me on. It was a blast. So looking forward to continuing our chat on social media, and looking forward to interacting with the fans as we go into the off season.
100%, brother. And I definitely going to invite you back on. So, Mark, I can vouch for him. He's definitely passionate on Twitter. He'll definitely interact, but at the same time, he's always respectful. So I do appreciate that too. So, Mark, thank you for coming on. Guys, I'm G Carmi 21, George Carmi. Feel free to talk to me on Twitter. I'll catch y'all later. Have a great night. Peace out, guys.
All right, George. Have a good one, buddy.
Peace out, brother.